How can advocates and researchers give a voice to voiceless victims of conflict? How can I ensure that local voices are heard on the main stage of global policy? My name is Samantha Lakin, and I'm a Fulbright alum. My fight worth fighting is giving a voice to voiceless victims and survivors of genocide and mass violence. In 2011-2012, I was a Fulbright scholar to Switzerland, where I learned how to document stories that were really untold. I interviewed 70 Holocaust survivors over the course of a year, and I talked to them about their rescue to Switzerland from the Nazi regime. So they were escaping the Nazi regime and going to safety in Switzerland. Many of them wanted to tell their stories, but they didn't have the opportunity to speak to someone who understood the trauma that they experienced and who really was able to put their history into a context that made sense. When I got to Switzerland, I realized that these people wanted to share their stories and that their stories had not been documented before in a meaningful way. Therefore, when I went to speak with them, to sit in their homes, to provide them comfort, and also to try and document their stories for a broader purpose, they were really pleased. I came to Rwanda in 2013 to start working with the Kigali Genocide Memorial and the Genocide Archive of Rwanda. There I documented testimonies and I learned a lot about justice and genocide. One thing that happened when I was there is I learned that my experience from working with Holocaust survivors allowed me to gain a certain kind of trust, comfort, and warmth with the genocide survivors in Rwanda. And those survivors who are here today, who I've interviewed or worked with, can tell you that I've really tried to create warmth amongst the community to make them feel comfortable about telling their stories. And I think that has been a huge benefit of working in Rwanda over the past 2 years. I've interviewed nearly 50 survivors and again have promised them that their opinions and attitudes toward justice would go beyond the walls of that room and would impact the global policy main stage. What's important is not only the documentation, but the impact that the documentation can make. I want to tell you the story of Gilbert, who is someone I interviewed in Kigali this past week. Gilbert was a strong and stoic man. He was 35 years old at the time of the genocide, and he had escaped the Interahamwe militia over 5 times. He had bribed people. He had constantly been on the run and had been hiding. But when the first massacres happened in his diverse neighborhood in Kigali City, he was surprised. He said, "I had faith in humanity and I had faith in a higher power. But when these massacres started to happen in 1994, it was total deception." Our interview closed with the words, "total deception." I then want to tell you the story about David, someone who I interviewed as well. I asked David, "What does justice mean for you? What could your community do in order to ensure justice for you?" He said something very simple. "All I want is for a photograph of my family to be signed by the government and to be put on my wall. That would be it. That would be justice for me. Recognition that my family died during the genocide." I've been an advocate for survivors of genocide for the past 5 years. I'd like to ask the TedXFulbright committee to please understand my passion and my commitment to promoting human rights and cultural understanding in the world today, and to please select me as a speaker for this year's TedXFulbright conference. I promise I won't let you down.